Hey YouTube, it's Monday. I'm TK. Uh, we're here on Cubic Cuties. We are going to talk about the legal recognition of non-binary genders. I'm here with Rigel, but he's sleeping between the couch cushions, so can't be in my shot. However, the legal recognition of non-binary genders is something which is a really interesting topic because Australia, India, Pakistan, and Germany all have documentation options that are neither male nor female on their in their legislation, which is great. However, they all function a little bit differently in each country. Um, in Australia, it's only your passport; it's not your birth certificate or any other documentation as far as I can tell. Um, in Germany, it's kind of more for intersex people. It's, a way to not categorize intersex babies as one thing or another, and then they're subjected to surgeries that they didn't consent to conform to some kind of nebulous standard of whatever that gender should be. Um, in Pakistan, it's more recognition for Hijra people, and it enforces their rights of inheritance, which historically were ignored. And in India, the article I found says it's for intersex and trans people, but it seems like it's kind of a way of othering trans people. So I think I think it's a step in the right direction, but some fine tuning is probably needed. In the U.S., however, which is the only thing that I really have authority talking about, I definitely think that non-binary people in the U.S. should have gender options on their documentation that reflects their identity. Because a legal gender, really, all that it designates is biological sex, big scare quotes, which is a fraught identity a fraught topic, excuse me, that we can talk about more in detail in another video. So really, how it works is the doctor looks at your junk when you're born. They put a letter on your birth certificate that follows you around for the rest of your life, unless you change it, and you can only change it to one other option. And it's kind of messed up to me that something so trivial like a mark on a piece of paper uh, starts to shape how you're treated, how you move through the world, what you have access to, and over time that becomes part of the mental map that we create for ourselves. And people react to that in various ways. So really, the way I see it, this whole system is basically a way of announcing to the world, I have a certain type of junk, and I've let that fact about me become the foundation for my entire identity. And that, for me, when I learned that, when I kind of put that together, that's when it started to get really uncomfortable being seen as a woman. But we'll talk about that later in another video again. So I think that we should not be assigning people legal genders at birth. I don't think it should be a category on our documentation at all. I think later on in life, maybe at 18, since that's when you're legally an adult, which is also a construction, um, that you can self-report whichever gender. Ow, Nigel. Um, that you can self-report whichever gender you want, and you can change that at any time. You don't need medical gatekeeping uh, as as a way to change your gender, um, and that you can leave it blank because it doesn't matter to you, or because it's just evident that you're this thing. Excuse me. This is really rambly because it's kind of late, and I've been putting this off all day. Uh, so yeah, I concede that that probably isn't the most practical approach, considering we have some existing infrastructure, in how we categorize people. At the very least, there ought to be some kind of option, like an X, or it could just be blank or whatever. If I had my druthers, that's what I would want. I would want for it to be blank. Um, Ostensibly, I think the rationale behind legal genders is so that the Bureau of Vital Statistics can track a population and model its data, but I think there are other vectors along which one could categorize a population and still make scientific statements about them. So, I mean, if Vital Statistics really wants to know about our junk, they can collect that information and call it what it is. This child was born with blah genitals. So, I think cis people, talking more practically and not, kind of idealistically, I think cis people would be hesitant to implement this kind of change because they, know, they'd be worried about fraud, which I think is a common fear that cis people tend to promote about trans people, especially in terms of transition, in terms of legal transition, in terms of medical transition. It's like, that's just transphobia. The idea that someone would want to transition just to commit some kind of fraud, to like, commit identity fraud. Or I've even heard people say, "Oh, well, what if they're a criminal and they're on the run and they want to, transition to try to like try to get away from this like shady past." I think that happened like once, but she was kind of an awful person. Anyway, there'll be links down in the description about all the things I'm muttering about. Um, but yeah, if people commit all kinds of fraud every day, if someone really wants to commit a crime, they're going to find a way to do it. And I don't think that making trans people's and non-binary people's lives a little bit easier is going to make it more attractive somehow for people who want to commit fraud. So that's my little rambly thoughts on this topic, and subscribe if you want to see more of me rambling like this and the other great people on this channel putting together more cohesive thoughts on the topics that we discuss every week. It's been fun, and I'll see you next time.